You look at the cultural moment we're in right now and you see this incredible shift happening.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Right. Like we've got the Oscars sweeping for everything, everywhere, all at once. We've got Marvel superheroes like Shang-Chi front and center. And K-pop groups are they're absolutely dominating the global music charts.
Yeah. Mainstream Asian representation is arguably at an all-time high.
Exactly. It's at an all-time high. But then you take a step off the red carpet and you walk into, a standard corporate boardroom, and the contrast is actually shocking.
It really is. The numbers tell a very different story.
They really do. So today's deep dive is custom tailored for you. We're unpacking excerpts from a really fascinating book called Big Asian Energy by John Wang. And our mission today, to figure out the invisible forces that are holding highly capable people back.
Because the statistics are just wild.
They are. Get this. Asian Americans make up 13% of the professional workforce right now, but a dismal 3% of executive leadership. Like, the bamboo ceiling isn't just some metaphor, it's a statistical fortress.
Yeah, and there's that one piece of data from the text that it blows my mind every time.
Oh, the resume one?
Yes. Asian applicants who actively whitewash or hide their race on their resumes get twice the callback rate. Twice.
It's crazy. Okay, let's unpack this. How do we reconcile such massive cultural visibility on one hand with such rigid professional invisibility on the other?
It's a staggering disconnect, honestly. And it gets right to the heart of what this deep dive is really about. Because we aren't just looking at, HR problems or corporate statistics today.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Way deeper. What we're actually looking at is a massive psychological collision between two totally different sets of cultural conditioning. On one side, you have the Western ideal of individualism.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And on the other side, Eastern collectivism. And when you're raised with one operating system, basically, but you're forced to work inside the other, it forces you to adopt these role selves.
Role selves, like playing a part.
Yeah, you create these masks or characters that you play just to survive and fit in. And over time, maintaining those masks, it completely exhausts you.
I can imagine. And to understand why these corporate statistics even exist in the first place, the author points out that we have to look at how fundamental human traits are interpreted completely differently, depending on your cultural lens.
Right, traits like confidence.
Yes, confidence is the big one. There's this striking historical anecdote in the book that I think perfectly captures this. So back in the 1760s, there was this massive 5.5-ton, 18-karat gold Buddha statue in Thailand.
5.5 tons of gold. Just think about that.
Right. And to protect it from an invading army, the local monks covered the entire thing in layers of stucco and thick clay, just to make it look ordinary and, worthless.
So no one would steal it.
Exactly. But the monks ended up perishing in the invasion, and the statue was completely forgotten. For literally 200 years, everyone just thought it was a basic clay statue.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. Then, in the 1950s, it was being moved, and the ropes snapped. It hit the ground, the clay cracked open, and they chipped it away to reveal $250 million worth of solid gold.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
And in the context of this book, it's just the perfect metaphor for human potential.
It really is. And the text connects this hidden golden Buddha to a guy named Daniel. So Daniel is a hardworking, second-generation Korean American. He keeps getting passed over for promotions, and when he finally asks why, his boss tells him he lacks leadership presence.
The vague leadership presence feedback.
Right. But the thing is, Daniel doesn't lack confidence. His confidence is just Asian confidence. It's quiet, it's humble, it's highly observant, it's understated.
Like a hidden dragon.
Exactly like a hidden dragon. He doesn't want to boast, because in his culture, boasting is embarrassing. It's shameful. But Western corporate culture, it expects confidence to be loud, brash, and dominant.
Right.
The book actually outlines 5 core collectivist values that drive this: harmony, hard work, humility, honor, and hierarchy.
What's fascinating here is how those 5 values fundamentally rewire a person's default behavior. Let's look at the mechanics of that for a second. In a collectivist framework, your primary goal is the survival and cohesion of the group.
Not standing out.
Exactly. So boasting about your individual achievements isn't just seen as a quirky personality trait.
Nope.
It's seen as arrogant, selfish, and actively disruptive to the harmony of the team.
Wow.
You're basically taught that if your work is good enough, it will be recognized by the hierarchy without you having to shout about it.
I was thinking about this, and it's like being a world-class chess player, but your boss is evaluating your skills based on a game of dodgeball.
Oh, that's good.
Right. Like, you are fully capable, you have all the strategy, the intelligence, and the foresight. But you are playing by a completely different rule book. In your rule book, throwing a ball at someone's head or, boasting is a massive penalty. In their rule book, it's how you score points.
That is a great way to frame it. You're penalized for playing the wrong game. And going back to the Buddha metaphor, that clay we cover ourselves with to survive the dodgeball game that is our conditioning.
The layers we put on.
Right. The author visualizes this as concentric rings. You have your true self in the very center, then an inner ring of family conditioning and an outer ring of social conditioning.
So the goal isn't to just add more clay.
No, true confidence, at least in this framework, isn't about suddenly learning how to fake Western extroversion. It's about unlearning and cracking those unhelpful clay layers of conditioning to reveal the gold that was already there.
But cracking that clay has to be incredibly difficult when the outside world is constantly actively reinforcing it. Because Daniel's confidence is quiet, it gets misinterpreted. And that feeds directly into some deeply ingrained, scientifically documented stereotypes.
Yes, the stereotype content model.
Exactly. This was a major study out of Princeton and UCLA. It found that human beings essentially judge everyone they meet on two primary metrics: competence and warmth. And Asians are overwhelmingly stereotyped by society as high competence but low warmth.
Which means they're perceived as highly intelligent, very capable, technically proficient, but emotionally cold, distant, and hyper-competitive.
Which is wild. I mean, anyone who has ever experienced the hospitality of an Asian household knows how inaccurate that low warmth label is.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's the prevailing Western stereotype.
It is, and the reason it happens is a total misinterpretation of signals. In the West, warmth is signaled through extroversion. Big smiles, loud greetings, immediate physical affection, small talk.
Very outward displays.
Right. But in many Eastern cultures, warmth is signaled through acts of service, anticipating needs quietly, and showing respectful deference. Because the Western lens doesn't register those quiet actions as warmth, it defaults to seeing the person as cold and robotic.
And that leads straight into the perpetual foreigner and model minority myths, which have devastating real-world consequences. I mean, the text details the Harvard admissions bias as a prime example of this.
That part was tough to read.
It really was.
Yeah.
Investigations showed that Asian applicants with just off-the-charts academic and extracurricular profiles were consistently being scored lower on subjective personal ratings.
Things like likability, courage, kindness.
Exactly. It's so bad that college prep guides were literally advising high school students to actively hide their race.
Wow.
They told kids not to play the venue flute, to avoid listing chess club, and to try to appear less Asian on paper just to survive the bias.
And you see the immediate effect of that, right? You learn early on that to be accepted, to be deemed warm or likable, you have to completely code switch. You have to put on the clay.
Yeah. The book shares this anecdote about a co-facilitator that I think a lot of people will relate to. The night before a big corporate presentation, this guy goes out to a karaoke bar with the team.
Oh, I love this story.
Right. He is an absolute rock star. He's loud, he's charismatic, he is totally owning the room. But the very next day, they get into the professional meeting and he becomes a silent, passive observer. He barely speaks.
Complete 180.
Total 180. And it's entirely out of deference to authority. He learned that being loud and taking up space at work breaks the deeply conditioned rules of hierarchy and humility.
Precisely. He's playing the role self that his conditioning tells him keeps him safe and employed.
Okay, wait, I'm going to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
If you're listening to this and thinking, well, isn't code switching just a smart, rational survival tactic? Like, if the boardroom is biased, isn't it just emotional intelligence to adapt to the room? At what point does code switching stop being a smart survival tool and start becoming an act of, toxic self-abandonment?
That is the exact pivot point where careers stall. Because there is a biological and psychological cost to adaptation. Chronic code switching causes deep psychological fatigue.
It's exhausting.
It really is. Think about the cognitive load required to constantly monitor your every word, your posture, your tone. just to make sure you aren't perceived as too Asian or too quiet.
Just constantly analyzing yourself.
Yeah. The text cites a Bain & Company study showing that Asian workers actually feel the least included at work out of any demographic. Only 16% of Asian men and 20% of Asian women feel they truly belong in their workplaces.
Only 16 and 20%. That's terribly low.
Exactly. Survival tactics like code switching might keep you safely employed in the middle ranks, but they don't let you lead. You cannot step into visionary executive leadership if your nervous system is fundamentally exhausted from pretending to be someone else for 40 hours a week.
Wow. Okay. So if we are exhausted from constantly playing these roles, what do those roles actually look like? Because the author categorizes these deeply ingrained coping mechanisms into what he calls the 7 patterns of self-sabotage.
Right. There are 7 of them.
Yeah. They are the achiever, the fixer, the chameleon, the charmer, the invisible one, the commander, and the rebel. We obviously can't hit all 7 today, but let's deep dive into a few, starting with the achiever, because the statistics here absolutely blew my mind.
The achiever pattern is so common. It's driven by the subconscious beliefs that you must constantly overperform just to be worthy of taking up space.
And the cost of that is staggering. The author interviewed Newton Cheng, who is Google's global director of health.
Very high up there.
Yes. And Cheng noted that in the general population, about 3 out of 10 people suffer from the monster of impostor syndrome. If you look at a high-performing tech company, it jumps to 6 out of 10.
Which it makes sense for tech.
Right. But when he polled Asian American resource groups, he said it's a staggering 12 out of 10. Every single hand in the room goes up, and some people raise both hands. And it creates this mechanism the book calls the achiever treadmill.
Let's look at how that treadmill actually operates. For an achiever, success never cures the imposter syndrome. You think, if I just get this promotion, I'll feel secure.
But they don't.
Never. The moment you achieve it, your brain doesn't register safety. It just resets the anxiety for the next bigger goal. Because if your core worth is tied entirely to your output, you can never afford to stop running.
Which ties perfectly into the next pattern, the fixer. The text shares the story of a woman named Esther. She is the ultimate fixer. After a full day of work, she's up late rewriting her 24-year-old brother's resume for him.
Oh, classic fixer behavior.
Right. At the office, she operates as the dumpster. She takes on all the extra, unglamorous work nobody else wants to do. It's a phenomenon heavily tied to elder-daughter syndrome. It's this overwhelming sense of obligation where you are constantly setting yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the fixer's mechanism is driven by a profound fear of rejection. They subconsciously believe that as long as they are highly useful, as long as they are of service, they can't be discarded.
Wow, that's heavy.
It is. And then you have the invisible one, which operates on a different frequency of that exact same fear.
Yeah, the invisible one is terrified of being a burden. And, I mean, to an extreme degree.
Oh, the examples in the book are wild.
They really are. The book mentions a scenario of someone driving in endless circles around a neighborhood just to avoid making a left turn, simply so they don't hold up the traffic behind them.
It is driving in circles.
Yes. Or another story of someone who took a public bus to the emergency room while actively suffering from appendicitis.
Appendicitis on a bus.
Purely because they didn't want to inconvenience a friend by asking for a ride.
It's a profound self-erasure. You make yourself as small as possible to avoid any negative judgment. When the author maps these patterns across traits like assertiveness, competence, and empathy, you realize that the root of all this self-sabotage is exactly the same.
It all comes from the same place.
Yes. It's the deeply ingrained belief that love, safety, and acceptance are highly conditional.
It's almost like they view social relationships like a terrifying credit card bill.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Like, for fixers and invisible ones, asking a friend for a ride to the hospital isn't just a simple favor. In their conditioned minds, it's taking out a massive mortgage of guilt that they're going to be paying off for years. So they'd rather literally bankrupt their own physical health than take on that invisible social debt.
Exactly. And if we want to dismantle these patterns, we have to trace that fear back to its origin. I mean, we aren't born terrified of making a left turn. That is a learned behavior.
Right.
We have to look at where that conditional nature of love and success was first programmed into us, which means looking at childhood family dynamics.
Let's get into the parenting aspect then. The book breaks down 3 general styles. You have the tiger parent, which is highly demanding and authoritarian. You have the jellyfish parent, which is overly permissive with few boundaries. And the dolphin parent, which is authoritative, but warm, collaborative, and communicative.
And it's Important to note here.
Yeah, the author is very careful to note that not all Asian parents are tiger parents. That's a harmful stereotype.
Exactly.
But the impact of heavy familial expectations, that crushing pressure to succeed for the sake of the family's honor, is a nearly universal experience in the diaspora.
And the problem with that heavy expectation is that it relies almost entirely on extrinsic motivation. It's carrots and sticks. Do this to make us proud, or else you will shame the family.
But the text references a famous behavioral study by Daniel Pink, which explains why this backfires, right?
Yes, Pink's research is fascinating. It looks at how human beings respond to rewards. If you give someone a mechanical, repetitive task, a financial or extrinsic reward works great.
Like stuffing envelopes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the moment a task requires even basic cognitive skill, creativity, or conceptual thinking, extrinsic rewards actually destroy performance. It works for a short sprint, but eventually the person burns out, resents the work, or loses all passion.
So what's the alternative?
Pink found that intrinsic motivation, doing something because it deeply aligns with your own internal values and autonomy, is the only truly renewable resource.
The cultural conditioning prioritizing that extrinsic family honor goes so deep, though. I mean, it's literally coded into our fairy tales. The author brings up a story we all grew up with. Mulan.
Oh, the Mulan breakdown is brilliant.
It is. The standard Western takeaway from the Disney movie is usually like girl empowerment, but the actual underlying cultural coding of that folklore is entirely about profound self-sacrifice.
Right.
Mulan's heroism only counts because she risks her life not for her own glory or personal ambition, but to save her father and her nation.
It creates this deeply embedded dichotomy where any form of self-care, personal ambition, or boundary setting feels like a literal betrayal of your family.
Like you're being selfish.
Exactly. The message is, doing something for yourself is inherently selfish. Doing it for your community is the only way to be honorable.
I really struggle with this part. I mean, think about it. Isn't self-sacrifice objectively a virtue? We celebrate first responders, soldiers, and teachers for exactly that. So if you're listening and you were raised to believe that putting others first is the ultimate good, how are you supposed to draw the line? How do you untangle being a good, honorable person from what the book calls toxic self-abandonment?
It's a vital question, and it requires a fundamental shift in perspective. Duty becomes toxic the moment it requires the complete erasure of the self.
The erasure of the self.
Yes. Think about the difference between respect and obedience. The expectation of blind obedience from a child or an employee is not genuine respect. It's a mechanism of control. True respect allows for the autonomy of the other person. Fulfilling the achiever role just to satisfy your parents or your boss puts you on that treadmill we talked about. Yeah. And the terrible truth about the achiever treadmill is that the only reward for winning a pie eating contest is more pie.
More pie. Just more work.
You just get handed more work, more expectations. You will never arrive at a place of peace through self-abandonment. You have to consciously step off the treadmill.
Which brings us to the application part of the deep dive. Understanding this heavy clay of our conditioning is only half the battle. How do we actually crack it? How do we reveal the gold?
Luckily, the text provides some incredibly practical tools.
Yes, and I want to dive into the mechanisms of why they work. Let's start with the magic carpet exercise.
This is a powerful visualization and somatic technique.
Right, so you imagine a carpet on the floor. 5 steps ahead of you is your ideal self, 10 feet tall, unstoppable, completely confident in your own skin. 5 steps behind you is the opposite, the most deflated, insecure, shrinking version of yourself.
And you physically move between them.
Yeah, you physically take steps backward to feel how terrible and heavy that shrinking feels in your body. And then you take physical steps forward, ultimately stepping into the space of that 10-foot-tall ideal self. It isn't just a mental game. It actively shifts your physiology.
Exactly. And the mechanism here is tied directly to your nervous system. The mind and body are intrinsically connected. When you physically inhabit a posture of confidence, shoulders back, chest open, breathing deeply, your vagus nerve sends safety signals to your brain.
So it tricks your brain.
In a way, yes. It momentarily bypasses your intellectual anxiety and your amygdala's fear response, allowing you to literally feel what it's like to be unapologetically yourself. It's somatic experiencing.
That's amazing. Next is the micro wins journal. This specifically combats the achiever's tendency to only look at the massive gap between where they are and absolute perfection.
Right, instead of waiting for a massive promotion to celebrate.
Exactly. Instead of logging major milestones, you write down tiny molecular wins. Like, I asked a clarifying question in a meeting. I drank a glass of water. I rested for 20 minutes without feeling guilty.
The reason this works is because it rewires a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
Okay, can you walk me through how that actually works?
Sure. Think of the RAS as the brain's spam filter. Your brain is bombarded with millions of bits of data every second. It relies on the RAS to filter out what isn't important based on what you focus on most.
Okay.
If your achiever conditioning constantly tells you, I'm failing, I'm not doing enough, your spam filter literally blocks out your successes. By physically writing down micro wins every day, you are forcing that filter to let the good stuff through.
You're training your brain to organically spot progress rather than deficiency?
Exactly.
That makes so much sense. Okay, to address the fixer and the chameleon patterns, there is the no week.
Oh, this one is tough but necessary.
It's very tough. For one entire week, your default answer to any non-essential request, whether it's extra work or a social obligation, is no. You just say no. You have to rebuild that boundary muscle.
This is essentially exposure therapy for people pleasers.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah. When a fixer tries to say no, their nervous system triggers a fight or flight response. They feel a literal sense of panic.
Like they're in danger.
Right. By enforcing a no week, you are pushing through that initial panic to prove to your nervous system that you can set a boundary and the world will not end and people will not suddenly hate you. It builds psychological safety.
And finally, to combat perfection paralysis, we have the messy playdate. The text cites this fascinating study by former NASA engineer Mark Rober.
The coding puzzle study.
Yes. So Rober created a coding puzzle for his followers. Half the participants were told they lost 5 points if they failed a level. The other half had no penalty for failing.
No penalty at all.
Right. The group with 0 penalty solved the puzzles at a vastly higher rate and tried 2.5 times more often.
It proved that people solve problems far more effectively when the fear of failure is completely removed.
So the book suggests you have to do something with absolutely 0 financial or professional consequence just to be messy. John Wang, the author, writes about deciding to bake a terrible, messy Skittle and walnut cheesecake.
Gross.
Very gross. But he did it just to experience the joy of doing something badly without any expectations of excellence.
This raises an important question for you listening right now. Where in your life are you waiting for someone else to hand you a permission slip to be amazing? Or even a permission slip just to be messy?
Yeah.
Because the reality is, you are the only one who can write the test you are trying to ace. You have to give yourself permission to step out of the culturally assigned roles you've been carrying and step into the person you actually are.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something to take with you beyond these patterns. All your life, you might have been told to shrink, to assimilate, and to fix your quiet confidence to match a louder, more aggressive Western corporate world.
Right.
But consider the massive technological shift happening right now. With the rise of AI and automation, computers are becoming infinitely better at the loud, performative, highly analytical tasks. The brash, dominant, numbers-obsessed leadership style is becoming obsolete because a machine can do it.
That is such a good point.
So what if the exact traits you've been conditioned to think are your weaknesses? Your humility, your deep collective empathy, your quiet strategic observation are actually the ultimate premium human skills of the future economy.
Wow.
What if your specific brand of quiet leadership is exactly what the world is desperately starved for right now? You don't need to add more layers of clay. You just need to let it crack.
The gold has been there all along.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Take that 10-foot tall energy into your day, and we'll see you next time.